Hello and welcome back to another Infinite Flight tutorial. In this video, I'll give you a quick guide to flying the Boeing 757. The Boeing 757-200 on Infinite Flight is equipped with two RB211 engines and has extraordinary short-field capabilities, making it a versatile addition to the fleet. We begin with taxiing the Boeing 757. No more than 35% N1 should be used to get moving. Once rolling, you can often reduce to a very low power setting or even idle to maintain speed on the ground. 90-degree turns should be done at a speed no greater than 10 to 12 knots, and a straightaway speed of 20 to 30 knots is most common. Now, let's talk takeoff. The most common flap setting is 5 degrees for a standard, light to medium weight departure with plenty of runway. 15 degrees is for shorter runways, and 20 degrees may be used at a high takeoff weight, high altitude, and/or short fields. With our flaps set at 5, positive takeoff trim between 25 and 45%, I'll advance my throttle to 60% N1 before applying takeoff power. Takeoff power for a medium weight can be anywhere from 80 to 95% N1. Remember, the Boeing 757 is extremely powerful, and a lower power setting can often be used. At a rotation speed of 135 knots, we'll gradually pull back on the yoke for a 3-second rotation. As we lift off, we pitch for 15 to 21 degrees and retract our gear once a positive rate of climb is established. Passing 1,000 feet above the airport, I reduce to a climb power setting of 83% N1, lower the nose, begin accelerating, and retract flaps 5 passing 190 knots, flaps 1 passing 210 knots. At our desired climb speed of 250 knots, we simply pitch to maintain the speed. This can be done by hand or using the autopilot, though I recommend you don't set the autopilot until you pass 1,000 feet. We've reached 10,000 feet and will again lower the nose, accelerate, and climb to cruise at 296 to 310 knots indicated. In some instances, you may even increase climb power above 10,000 feet if a conservative climb profile was used departing the airport environment. The Boeing 757-200 service ceiling is 42,000 feet and has a cruising speed of Mach 0.78 to 0.80. Heavy departures above 250,000 pounds should not climb higher than flight level 340. Additionally, a cruising altitude above flight level 380 should not be selected until the aircraft weight is below 200,000 pounds. We now plan our arrival. The descent can be done using VNAV or manually by adjusting your rate of descent using various tools such as the altitude arc to determine where you'll reach the set altitude. It's important to note that the Boeing 757 is very slippery and may often accelerate in a descent greater than 1,400 feet per minute. A proactive and carefully planned descent is a must. Slow down sooner than later. It's time for our arrival. Two common arrival speeds for the Boeing 757 are 210 knots and 170 knots. I've used 210 knots and flaps 1 on the downwind, and will begin slowing to 170 knots with flaps 15 as I turn base to set up for the ILS approach. Next, let's use the approach mode to establish ourselves on the ILS runway 25 at Rhodes. We've used a standard intercept of 30 degrees, leveled at 2,000 feet to stay below the glide slope, and will select APPR to initiate an auto-land procedure. Once selected, LOC and ALT, or localizer and altitude, will flash until the localizer and glide slope's altitude guidance is captured. We're established on the localizer indicated by the solid green LOC in the APPR box, and the glide slope is also now captured. At this stage, we can go gear down, flaps 20, speed brakes armed, and continue to gradually reduce to my final approach speed. Below 150 knots, we can go flaps 30 and fully configure for landing. So let's land this plane. Our landing speed at 190,000 pounds is 135 knots. Regardless of weight, I recommend never landing slower than 125 knots. Our final approach profile is 135 knots, the nose slightly up at approximately 2.5 degrees, and we'll just wait for those altitude callouts.
50, 40, 30, 20.
At 20 feet, I slightly raise the nose and very gradually reduce my throttle to idle. The goal is reaching idle at the exact same time your main gear touches the runway. Once on the ground, continue to fly the nose to the ground. Use reverse thrust until 80 knots. Reduce to idle reverse until 60 knots. Then stow the reversers and apply manual braking to exit the runway. Note that the rudder is quite effective and very sensitive, so smooth inputs should be used. We're off the runway, our spoilers are retracted, flaps up, strobe and landing lights off, and we make our way to the gate. If you want to learn more about the Boeing 757-200, head to our community forum for many helpful guides and resources. Be sure you also stay up to date on the latest Infinite Flight news by following @InfiniteFlight on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you in the next one.